What's up, everyone? I am on site at this very sexy bedroom at Artistry in Sarasota. And today's video, I want to clear up something extremely important. New construction wait list. Why are they here? How long are they going to be here? What are they? How to navigate them? I'm going to clear up all this ambiguity on today's video. Please stick around and enjoy. For those that don't know me, I'm Adam Hancock. I have a real estate group in Southwest Florida, and I put out daily videos on Florida relocation and investment assistance. Okay, first things first, let's talk why there are wait lists at all right now with new construction in the Florida area and generally a lot of other places as well. So basically what happened is you had a complete firestorm of demand that was different than any previous year, all at the same time, that created just a capacity that builders and all these supply chain, all these things aren't ready for, right? So you had people coming down before retirement because they could work from home now. You had COVID lockdowns, people getting tired, it's cold weather, you had all these kind of things, right? You had all the normal reasons that people come to Florida related to affordable retirement, business benefits, tax liability benefits, all these other things. But what it did is it didn't just do a 10, 15% spike in demand, it created these 50% increases year over year with individual builders, let alone all of them, right? So just think of all the ramifications that can happen there. So what you basically have in essence is you have a supply chain that's already kind of hurting because of the material logistics related to people can't work in factories, and you have all these shutdowns, you have overseas to here, you have California to here, you have all these reasons that materials are not only harder to get, but also more expensive. And then you had an increase in demand that creates these kind of all these labor issues related to, you know, how many people are actually qualified to build houses all of a sudden when there's a 50% increase. They're moving the same crews about, and then they're trying to control cost, and they can't just let you sign 1 million contracts. One, because they can't build them in 12 months, and two, because they don't know what it's going to cost by the time they start your build. And you have all these bottlenecks with permits and all this stuff, right? So where the wait list idea is that it's not necessarily limiting your access to eventually get a lot, but it is delaying it significantly. And the reason they won't just let you sign and wait and pay your deposit is because if it costs more 4 months from now than it costs now, then their margin's done because they're not increasing prices after you already signed. So it's mainly labor and material shortage, and the wait list allows them to kind of control, one, not you signing and it takes 24 months to build everything, but also it's really, really, really tied to cost, right? So I've thought of in the past of, you know, like, to me, it seems like you could figure out a way to let people sign, let people have some finality, put down maybe a small deposit, and then have kind of a threshold of like an algorithmic way to say that if things fluctuate and we can prove and itemize the cost increases, then a buyer will inherit to this point. But it lets people actually kind of lock down to something, plan their life around it, do something like that. But it's so unknown, they don't even want to do that at the moment. So that's how we ended up where we're at now. So I wanted to kind of lay that kind of foundational surface. And I want to talk about two main things across this video. I want to talk about the current state. So the way these things are happening, the way people are winning lots, all that kind of stuff, the 4-ish main ways. And then I also want to talk about some practical tips about what you can do so you don't feel completely helpless. I'm actually here at Grand Palm in Welland Park in the Venice area right now looking at a lot for a client, so I wanted to film some on-site stuff here. But that's what I'm going to do across this video. I hope it's helpful to you, and let's keep going. Okay, so now let's talk the current state of things. This is gonna lay out what I'm seeing. This isn't gonna get into what I would do, but the last section, if you stick around, I will talk about how I would maneuver things. But this is just kind of what I'm seeing, the 4 main things when they have to do with waitlist. So the first one's just your traditional waitlist. It's future phase releases and your waitlist. You walk into a builder, you're on a list, they're pretty doom and gloom. Like you walk into Aria in Venice, they're saying, we're gonna release 2 lots a month and we're 100 people deep, right? So this is, you're waiting in technically in order of when you arrived. They're giving treatment based on first come, first serve is what they're saying. And then they're working that system, right? So people are waiting on 5 different lists in town. You have future phases that are going to be released that you can try to wait for. Sometimes you have lots like at Windward that are already out, like 30 lots that are already out. You don't know when the certain ones are going to be able to be sold, but you're going to just wait in order, right? So that's one thing to consider. That's one way it's happening. And let's talk about number 2. The second kind of main thing I'm seeing, and this has really been emerging as of late, is the email bid. Some call it easy offer. It's basically a lottery bid. Pulte's gone to it, which owns DeValsta as well. Taylor Morrison does it a lot. Neil is doing it at certain lots. And this is, there's goods and bads to it, but this is basically an announced release of lots versus like a wait list where it will be in order. You have so many people waiting, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to determine who's first and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to release it. It's going to be email or eBay style lottery bid. Some might give you 48 hours to respond. You have to bid. You have to kind of tell your terms. It's usually a minimum bid, so bidding below the minimum doesn't work. But there's no cap, and you just go for it, right? And so that's the second one. Again, several builders across town. I haven't seen Homes by Town touch it. Neil is doing it at Grand Palm, and I hadn't heard, and they're not doing it all across the board on all the lots. I hadn't heard that a lot in Neil other than that. Haven't seen it at Windward, haven't seen it at Aria or Vincenza or whatever. So that is just your straightforward email bid. That's number 2. Let's talk about the third one I'm seeing. The third thing I'm seeing emerging kind of as of late in the current state is spec building. So this is inventory homes. This has always existed, right? Like there's always a certain amount of inventory homes that are slated for a builder, and they're kind of doing these in between custom builds, right? You can buy them at certain stages, and some are pre-structural, some are post, whatever. So that's kind of what people say when they say spec build or inventory. A lot of these are basically they get to permit. So a ton of them, they do this where they'll choose the structural upgrades, which are permit related, right? Like rough-ins for the grill, the elevation for the house. Is there gonna be a pool? They do that. They don't touch design. You could hop in. It shortens your timeline, that kind of thing. So what they're doing now is like, they're gonna sell these things no matter what, right? So they're doing a lot more spec building. Grand Palm has done a ton of it. Stock development in Lake Club does a ton. So I'm seeing a lot more spec building because they're gonna sell these things no matter what. So it lets them have a little bit more control of the neighborhood, and it lets shorten some timelines. It's like Lennar, basically, like Lorraine Lakes, they're building all of them, whether you're coming or not. So when you swing in, now it doesn't change the availability and stuff, but when you swing in, that's kind of what a spec would be. So I'm seeing that just increase. That's the big difference in the current state. It's always existed, like I said, but I'm seeing that really increase, and a kind of a it can't be chooser's market. That will have good and bad, but that is the third thing I'm seeing. And let's talk about one more before we move on. Okay, and the fourth major thing I'm seeing in kind of this current state of wait lists and new construction in Southwest Florida is the from scratch custom building environment and availability. So this one's interesting because these guys aren't building 1 trillion homes a year a lot of times, right? Arthur Ruttenberg does not build, I think I heard 30 to 50 homes in Sarasota. I don't know if that's true, but they don't build a ton, right? Lee Wetherington, they a lot of times, like someone else will develop that land and they'll sell into that, or they'll buy into that. Like they bought into Homes by Towns developed Waterside, Lake House Cove side. They're in the Lake Club. They're in, I think Arthur Ruttenberg's in parts of Sky Ranch. They're in, all over Sarasota, really. But what I'm seeing is here, like where I'm seeing the availability thing's really interesting, right? So these guys are doing a whole different thing. It's a long build. It's from scratch. A lot of times the price point's way higher. But I'm seeing people get creative if they can't find elsewhere, right? You love Lee Wetherington in Lake House Cove, no availability. Or they're selling $300,000 lots that are on interior land on an entrance, right? Those people are moving and trying to do the Lake Club I had one that did Arthur Ruttenberg. They just came in town, did Arthur Ruttenberg on a custom lot in the Lake Club, and no wait list, nothing, right? I've done some in Blora in Sapphire Shores, north of downtown Sarasota. But that's just the other thing I'm seeing. So people are getting more creative. If you're gonna spend this money anyway, the money's increasing in general. If you have that over $1 million or some particular needs, that's something I'm seeing the availability very different than because they're not stuck to this labor forced contract thing because their volume is not there. So typically your availability is a lot quicker there, but again, price point, some sacrifices or whatever, limitations. So anyway, that's the fourth thing. So traditional wait list, you have email bids, you have spec building, and you have the custom home environment. So that's the current state of things. Now stick with me for a little bit. I want to talk about in the last section, just kind of what should you do? Like, how should you look at this? What should you play? You know, what should you do when it comes to this stuff other than just saying, well, can't buy? You know, I think there's shades of gray there. So I want to talk about that last. Hope this is adding you value, and I will hop back on here in a bit. Okay, so our last section for this video is going to be practical tips, right? I gave the current state of things and some opinions related to that, and I want to give now maybe how to maneuver that stuff. It's a negative market. A lot of people are Debbie Downers in this market and burn out and tired, and it's tough, but it doesn't change the fact that you might still need to do something or want to do something. So that's what this section is going to serve. Okay, the first point I wanted to mention was it sucks. You know, the market is what it is. It's a seller's market. It's a new construction market. It's not enjoyable. It's hard to build. It's hard to buy resale, right? But it doesn't change the fact that this is the current environment. These guys are going to sell those houses to someone. They're not going to stop, right? You got to, and if you need to buy or want to buy, you have to kind of navigate this system as it exists. So we're not going to be romantic about it. We are going to work the system in the way that they want it to be worked, and we're going to navigate it in that way. And that's how you're going to be one of those people that gets that house, right? And that's up to a certain point. I'm going to talk about that in step 2. But that's the first thing, is that just being not romantic about it and acknowledging that that is the current market, and we're not getting incentives anymore, and they're not giving discounts, and they're not doing any of that kind of stuff. They're going to tell you to pound sand if you ask them for anything, but it doesn't change the fact that it might still be the right deal or the appropriate, or you might be moving for a job and you have to do it either way. So that's point number 1, and let's talk about point number 2. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the kind of second and third points in tandem. So the first one is we're going to do all this kind of stuff I mentioned, but we're going to do it up to diminishing returns. So for instance, say you were trying to buy the Kiowa in Windward, and say you were trying to do that in January. It was $480K base price, and I was looking at water lots for 70 or interior lots for 20, and I was going to add a pool and do all this thing, and I had a price in mind. I already vetted out structural upgrades. Well, now it's sitting in April. I'm still on that wait list, haven't been pulled up. Now I'm seeing a 530 base price. I am seeing the lost price increase, the materials increasing on the structural list. So now this is starting to creep and creep and creep. And then at what point then my whole package, I was going to be at 750 is now at 885, and I might not like that deal at all anymore. I might not like that house if it cost that in the first place. So we're going to do this to diminishing returns. And we're also going to do this related to a date, right? So not only your timeline to move in, but your timeline of like when this becomes a problem. So I'm going to set a date 90 days from now, and I'm going to say, up into this cap and to this date, this makes sense. I mean, I don't like it. I don't like they're raising prices every 2 deals, but it doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. Still, for what I'm trying to do in the current environment, the way it is. So I'm going to set this date, and then at a certain point, based on timing or my current liquidity or the price of the house, I'm going to see, does this even make sense at all? There is levels of like communities where it would have made sense to buy at 650, but now you're at 880, 900, and someone else can buy a villa in there for 280, and you're at the wrong side of the ROI proposition. And maybe it makes sense now to say like, well, if I'm going to be paying this, like, can I get in waterside and be at the low end, or, you know, something like that. So that's something to be really consider, and being non-emotional about it, I think or having a fiduciary that is that we have to evaluate things like this, because they will evolve, and you might like something way better 3 months from now than you were in love with it at a certain price, right? So anyway, that's point 2 and 3, and let's hop to the next one. Okay, the fourth thing on our practical tips section of this video about wait lists and new construction, our wait lists are kind of shitty in themselves. They're not worth a lot. It doesn't cost money or a monetary exchange at most wait lists in town right now. So everybody's waiting on like 5. They're just throwing them on and seeing what happens or whatever. So that 100 people on that wait list, or the 15 in front of you, they might not have the 100K in cash that's required to go at Azario when they pull the trigger. They might have not even thought about their structural upgrades. They might not be really prepared. And because waiting is very different than engaging. All of that being said, I mean, you're going to these sales centers, and not all these salespeople are equal, right? So it's going to be way more aligned to like a 9-to-5 job. If they're not incentivized in the right manner, or they're tired or burnt out, they're treating customers that way. And if you don't have a shield in front of you, it feels like in certain places, if you walk into Aria right now, you might think you'll never buy ever. That's the way they're talking to customers. Again, working this system, right? Think about how it actually shakes down. And there are delays and it's not fun anyway, but it's not to say that if you're 50 deep or 40 deep at a lot of these places, the way I prepare people, one is that it's not necessarily equal, right? So it's in order, kind of, maybe, if it's not on a lottery bid, but it's also like, are they gonna call the fourth place person if they haven't even thought about their structural upgrades, they did nothing? Or are they gonna call the one that's like got to a T, the permit contract related pricing? They know everything. I've been on them every single day, all week. So in my mind, that gives you a huge advantage. But anyway, like I wanted to cover that the wait lists they are not as serious as people think. And anything that puts like kind of like a deposit early or something like that helps. But they're relatively flimsy. So I would not weight those too highly. Okay, and the last point I wanted to make on the practical tip section is, it's very biased here, but representation matters. I think representation is gonna be more and more prevalent. And in this kind of market, in all the little subtleties, especially if you're out of town, and just what I'm seeing other realtors do at new construction developments and that kind of thing, I think it's very important, right? So new construction is maybe one of the shadiest things that I see as far as how realtors interact. They call it like kind of procuring cause, where, you know, many people believe that the builders are paying for realtors to simply bring someone to them one time. To me, that's ridiculous of how much you should get paid for just showing someone what a community is. But a lot of people, like, their strategy is to bring you there and get your name written down with them, and then you're there for life with them. So the problem with that is that, one, they might never get you a lot. Two, it happens very quick, and this is a long freaking process. So if it takes you 15 months to do this whole thing end to end, you have that guy representing you the entire time, or that girl, or the wrong sales agent on site. So that stuff, it's subtle and it happens extremely quick, and you might have no idea what happened about that realtor like booking your appointment for you as a concierge and all the little subtle ways they tie you to themselves. But I think thinking about fiduciary assistance is more and more important as we go forward. And obviously, like, I'm vested and all this kind of stuff, but even beyond that, you know, if I can separate myself from that, I would tell people, you could ask anyone that I've worked with. I've told everyone, if you told me tomorrow you hate me or it's not consensual in any way, then of a value proposition, then you could walk away. I'd back myself out, no problem, right? So I force myself to be in a value, right? If you're a buyer's agent and you're out of town, a lot of it's not that valuable to bring you to a builder or drive you around town. It's got to be a true fiduciary. You have to know enough to be a fiduciary. You have to know about all the builders in Tampa and Sarasota, and like enough to have an opinion, in my opinion. So anyway, but I think what's more important is not that first visit, but it's a long process. So beyond like me believing that I have an advantage of how to navigate the initial like winning of a lot, I'm talking about the whole entire thing. So that's something to really think about. Whether you did it yourself, you used a realtor, whatever, just think about the infrastructure of what happens the entire time. I think it's very important. I think it's going to be much, much important, and the good and the bad are going to be further separated from each other as we move forward in this weird market. So that's kind of my piece there, and let's finish and wrap up. All right, guys, so that does it for this video on the current market of wait lists and new construction in Southwest Florida. Hope that cleared up some of the confusion going on, some of the ambiguity and vagueness surrounding this industry. Hope it was helpful. Please check out the description below, my contact information, more helpful resources, additional videos that you might find insightful. Please check out the other couple videos I'll put here. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you, any content that you've been interested on that I've not covered yet. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.